Lay down and relax. I shall read to you. Tonight I bring you new mysteries from your Middle Ages. Ones you have not yet heard from my old, smoke-softened tongue. You will hear of a monastery that trapped voices inside walls, a clock that was always 1 hour ahead of time, a village that vanished without leaving footprints, a mapmaker who drew a country no human had ever found, and many more oddities that made the medieval world shiver beneath its own ignorance. So settle yourself, tuck your blankets around you, unless you prefer the heat of my breath. Let your mind soften, open, drift. For tonight we walk into mysteries even I, an ancient dragon, do not fully understand. Mystery I. The abbey that could not be silent. In the hills of northern Spain stood a Benedictine abbey, known, ironically enough, as Santa Quietas, Saint Quiet. But quiet was the one thing it never had. No matter how devout the monks, no matter how thick the stone walls, the abbey hummed, a constant low vibration, a sound like distant chanting, though no lips moved. Pilgrims claimed they heard whispered prayers in languages no monk knew. Kings sent priests to bless it. Priests fled within a day. One claimed that if he pressed his ear to the wall, he heard breathing. I visited once. Dragons, as you may imagine, prefer our buildings not to murmur at us. But curiosity won. As I pressed a claw to the wall, I felt it. A rhythm. Slow, steady, older than the abbey. Centuries later, masons repairing the foundations discovered a forgotten Visigothic crypt beneath the floors, filled with sealed clay jars. When cracked open, they emitted a trembling hum, caused by tiny glass beads vibrating faintly inside. Some say it was a primitive musical prayer device. Some say it trapped voices from an older age. I say it was a warning the monks never understood. Because the humming never stopped, even after the jars were removed. Mystery 2. The clock that ran 1 hour ahead. In a small town in Flanders, a clockmaker named Roland de Vries crafted a tower clock unlike any other. It was beautiful, precise, and utterly infuriating. Because no matter how often the townspeople adjusted it, no matter how carefully they rewound its gears, the clock was always 1 hour ahead. Not slow, not random. Always 1 hour into the future. Weather changes, the clock predicted them. Deaths in town. The bell tolled 60 minutes before the person passed. A barn fire. Roland heard the bell strike before smelling the smoke. When the bishop declared it demonic, Roland defied him and opened the clock's casing. Inside he found gears polished to mirrors, too perfect for medieval tools, as if they had been made by something that understood not just metal, but time. When Roland died, the clock stopped instantly and forever. Modern horologists examined the gears centuries later. The metals were real, the craftsmanship impeccable. But the strangest part? Every gear was engraved with tiny numbers, not Flemish, not Latin. And when calculated, they aligned perfectly with astronomical cycles the villagers could not have known. Some say Roland had help from the stars. Some say he dreamed the future and built it into metal. I, who have watched time shift like sand dunes, believe the simplest truth. Sometimes humans stumble into knowledge not meant for their century. Before you drift too far into dreams, little human, a small favor from an old dragon. If you've enjoyed resting here beneath my wings, consider subscribing to my hoard of stories. Each new believer helps me gather more treasures and avoid ravaging cities for loot when I'm low on funds. I'm retired now, and my back makes sounds that haunt even me. Now, back to the story. Mystery 3. The village that vanished overnight. In the year 1287, the village of Brandersham in England disappeared. Entirely. Livestock, tools, clothing lines, cooking pots still warm. But no humans. Not a single footprint leaving the village, not a trail of carts, not a sign of struggle. Doors stood open, beds left unmade, a loaf of bread halfway kneaded, a candle burned to the end. I flew over the site 2 days later. A dragon's eyes miss nothing. No bodies, no tracks, no drag marks, no mass migration. Even the church bell rope hung mid-swing, as if someone had let go only seconds prior. 2 months later, Brandersham reappeared. Not rebuilt, not repopulated, simply reappeared, but 11 kilometers west of its original location. The same houses, same crooked fences, same orchard, all intact, but the wells were dry. The hearths were cold. The bread was rotting. Scholars say a mapping error was corrected. Villagers whisper the land itself spat the village out and threw it somewhere else. I say nothing, because what I saw that night was stranger still. The air above the abandoned village shimmered like heat waves, even though it was winter. Mystery 4. The Cartographer's Impossible Map. In 1433, a cartographer named Albinus Treloir produced a map for the French crown. It was exquisite, shorelines drawn with obsessive precision, mountains shaded with loving patience. But it included something no one could explain. A large island off the coast of Brittany. An island no ship had ever seen. An island locals had never heard of. Albinus insisted it existed. He claimed he had seen it from a cliff during a fogless dawn. A massive landmass with forests and white cliffs. Explorers were sent. They found only empty sea. But the map remained, and worse, kept changing. Every new copy Albinus made showed the island with slightly different shapes, as if it shifted when he wasn't looking. Trees moved, cliffs angled differently. A river appeared where none had been. When Albinus died, they found dozens of sketches in his workshop. All of the same island, all from different angles, some from far above, as if he'd been flying. I once flew the same coastline in deep fog and saw something. A shadow on the water so large my wings felt small. Maybe the island wasn't imagined. Maybe it simply didn't stay still long enough for humans to claim it. Mystery Fee. The manuscript that wrote back. At a monastery outside Lubeck, scribes kept a book no monk dared open after sunset. The Sibelius Codex was written in a language no living scholar could identify. Looping runes intertwined with symbols resembling constellations. But the real mystery wasn't the writing. It was that the ink moved slowly, patiently, reforming letters over months. A phrase one monk copied in 1301 looked entirely different when examined in 1305. Not fresher, simply rearranged as if the book had corrected him. When I inspected it, the pages were warm to my touch, and the ink trembled like a muscle anticipating movement. Centuries later, chemical analysis revealed nothing magical. No odd compounds, no tricks. Yet the letters still shift, even now, rearranging themselves when no one watches. Scholars argue, priests worry, historians panic. I merely smile. Some knowledge, little human, refuses to stay still. Mystery 66. The bells that rang for no one. In a fishing town off the coast of Ireland, every night at the same hour, bells rang from the sea. Soft, clear, melancholy. The townsfolk believed it was a sunken monastery calling out from beneath the waves. Others claimed it was the souls of drowned sailors. But no matter the tide, no matter the storm, the bells rang with perfect clarity. When divers finally explored the bay centuries later, they found no monastery, no wreckage, no anchors, nothing metal at all, just smooth sea floor. I once listened from above the water, hovering in salty mist. The bells did not echo. They did not vibrate the air. They rang inside my skull. Beautiful, sad notes that felt older than the ocean. Even dragons do not enjoy hearing music meant for the dead. Mystery 7. The alchemist who turned shadows to stone. In Prague lived an alchemist named Marek the Dim, not because he lacked intelligence, but because he worked only in darkness. He claimed sunlight frightened his experiments. Marek's obsession was not gold, nor immortality, but shadows. He trapped them in glass jars. He claimed they had weight. He said they struggled when corked. People laughed until the city guard found statues throughout the alley near Marek's home. Statues made not of stone, but of frozen darkness, shaped like human silhouettes mid-run. When Marek vanished, his workshop was found empty. Except for one thing. A shadow on the far wall that did not belong to anyone in the room. Touching it left a guard's hand numb for hours. Scholars now call it a soot stain. Fools. I've seen shadows behave badly, little human. It's why dragons sleep with their fire lit. Mystery 8. The choir with no singers. In 1272, travelers passing through a valley in Austria reported hearing a choir singing from inside a derelict chapel. Not just humming, full, harmonized, layered voices. Yet the chapel had no choir, no monks, no villagers nearby. When people stepped inside, the singing continued. But they could never determine its source. It came from everywhere and nowhere, from the rafters, from beneath the floorboards, from inside their own rib cages. The tones were beautiful, but sorrowful. A melody both human and not. Modern acousticians propose architectural resonance. Historians suggest wind patterns. but I know what it truly was. Centuries earlier, plague had emptied that valley. Hundreds died inside that chapel. And sometimes, in places where fear was thickest, sound refuses to leave. Mystery 9, the lantern that lit only the truth. In the archives of Milan, there was once a lantern said to reveal lies. When lit, its flame burned blue in the presence of deceit, red for fear, and white for innocence. Judges tried to use it. Priests borrowed it. Merchants feared it. Legend claims one nobleman demanded his servants walk before it nightly to test their loyalty. When the flame turned black, he dismissed 2 of them immediately, terrified. But when scholars dismantled the lantern centuries later, they found nothing unusual inside. Beeswax, linen wick, an iron base, plain glass panels. No chemicals, no enchantments, no trickery. Yet even in the museum today, when someone lies in its presence, the flame flickers blue. Perhaps the lantern was never magical. Perhaps humans simply fear honesty enough to change the world around them. Mystery X. The door that appeared once a century. Deep in the Black Forest stood an oak tree, older than memory. And once every 100 years, a door appeared in its trunk, fully formed, iron hinges, wooden frame, small brass handle. People tried to open it. Some knocked. Others prayed. No one succeeded. But a few noticed scratches near the hinge. Marks resembling claws. Not human ones. I know the truth of that door, but I will not tell it. Not because it is too frightening, but because it is too kind. Some mysteries are gifts to the world, not warnings. And dragons are allowed to keep 1 or 2 secrets. And so, little human, you have wandered through 10 mysteries your ancestors whispered about and could never solve. You have seen abbeys that hummed with trapped voices, clocks that ran ahead of time, maps of impossible lands, and shadows that did not obey their owners. Your world has always been stranger than you think. It is not science alone that shaped history, but wonder and fear, and things that slither between explanation and imagination. Now the hour grows soft again. Let the mysteries settle like dust in warm candlelight. Let your thoughts drift like smoke rising from my fire. Sleep now, under my wings. Tomorrow's questions can wait. Good night, humans.